Hello. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to yet another episode of the one and only Form Check Friday. Now, this is the series where we take your viewer-submitted videos, we pop them up on this screen behind me, and I take an expert look at the technique used. We try to help people become more efficient, better lifters. Now, one of the big things we're trying to do here is help people become better lifters, and what we did last time was we left Shania's bench press up on the screen, and we're going to start off with that one. So, Shania, here we go. Now, I'm going to pull up her email again so I can read the context again. If anybody's interested in submitting for Form Check Friday, you can go ahead and send your video and a brief description of yourself, your lift, whether or not you're competing, have any aspirations to compete, all that kind of stuff. Put that in the email. Send it to formcheckfriday@gmail.com. Unfortunately, we do still get some emails to other email addresses, and we don't use those. So we will only choose your submission if it comes to formcheckfriday@gmail.com. Now, that being said, let's get stuck in here. So this is Shania. She says she's been lifting consistently for about a year and has used our free program. Now, again, I'm just going to give a quick plug. It's a free program. If you head to calgarybarbell.com/coaching shop or click the coaching shop link, you can check out our free 16-week peaking program there. So she says she's got a video of about 80% for a triple, usually has a lift off for heavier sets, so she recognizes that her unracking seems a little problematic here. Her bench has been progressing pretty slowly, and she had to take a week or two break last month because she pulled something in her chest. She said it was likely a lack of warm-up, but she's wondering if there's anything else in her form that she can improve upon for further progress. Now let's shift our gaze over here and take a look. So first off, the unrack. Not bad, actually. For a self handoff, the big thing we're looking for on the unrack is this shoulder position. Now, we did have to protract or move the shoulder up a little bit. One of the big things we're trying to do on the bench, obviously, is pull the shoulders down, back towards one another and down the trunk of the body, which is what's creating this arch that Shania's got here. She unracks and does a pretty good job, actually, for a self handoff and what looks like not adjustable pins of getting the bar out. So let's see. Bar position looks okay in terms of the relation to her elbows. Now, one of the big things we often look for is we want to see the elbow maybe a tiny bit more tucked, so that as she presses, that bar will naturally come back and then up. One of the things that happens if the elbow is directly underneath or even a bit behind is as soon as there's upward force, because of the lever being on an angle, it pushes the bar out this way. Now, that's one of the reasons we tuck the elbows just slightly in front of the bar, so that when we push up, the lever is instead this way, and as soon as you have upward force here, it naturally pushes the bar back over the face, which is where we want to push the bar. So I think a little bit of problem getting that bar back into that sort of ideal bar path. The other thing is, as we come down to the chest, we're not really reaching the chest up to meet the bar. And that's another thing that I really want you to focus on is, so as you're lowering the bar, I want you to be thinking about bringing the chest up to meet the bar. Really pulling those shoulder blades back together and using those legs to push backwards and contribute to the arch, contribute to that upward chest tension. And you can see in the bottom of the range of motion, the bar kind of drops, right there. And it kind of settles, and you're almost letting the weight of the bar rest on the chest instead of keeping it in your hands. Now, when you do that, we're also seeing the elbows come back out behind it like that. And we want to keep the elbows in. We want to keep that chest up, a little bit more leg drive, and press that bar back and up off the chest. Now, that's just being nitpicky, though. Overall, your bench looks quite good, but if you're asking for pointers, that's what I got for you. All right. Our next video comes from Josh, and Josh is doing some deadlifts here. So this is a 4-rep PR, he says. 200 kilos for 4. His previous 1RM is 210, and he's always found off the floor to be the sticking point. He uses straps as he doesn't plan to compete, rather. And he agrees hook grip is just a little bit uncomfortable. He has some questions about the level of flexion in his back. Is it safe? And is it optimal? If not, what can I do to optimize it? Also, how can he work on creating better lat tightness? He feels like he's losing that slightly. So let's take a look at Josh's deadlift here. Now, Josh is a really long guy, like long proportions, right? Long limbs. Now, that little bit of flexion, I don't think is going to be that suboptimal. I think, you know, we're still mostly flat through here. We're losing it a little bit in the mid back, and that's pretty common. One thing I might recommend is trying out some sumo deadlifts to see if you can kind of get more locked into a better neutral position. A lot of times, surprisingly enough, conventional deadlifters do some sumo for a while. Back position feels a little bit better. They get stronger with a sort of more neutral back position, and then they come back to conventional and are able to carry over some of that. So that might be something worth investigating. No, I don't think there's any inherent lack of safety with your back position like that. Again, might see a little flame war in the comments for this one, but flexion is not necessarily a mechanic for injury. So the deadlift overall looks quite good to me. Now, in regards to the lat tension, let's take a look here. I think one of the things that you're doing is you're almost starting by kind of pulling your back into position. So right here, you're starting with your back and you're pulling back. Now, what I would recommend is keep those lats tucked. Think more about pushing the floor away and try to start the push with the legs, right? Start the push with the quads instead of thinking about pulling as soon as you begin the lift. Stay over the bar, keep that trunk locked, and push the floor away. I think that might contribute a fair bit to a little bit better efficiency throughout these deadlifts. Overall, look pretty good though, Josh. Nice work. Our next submission comes from Carl. Carl's doing some squats, and I'm just going to pull up his email here. So he's 15 years old. He's from Sweden. He's been lifting for 3 years, mostly bodybuilding, but fell in love with powerlifting about a year ago. He's thinking about competing, but he tries not to worry about that too much. He's been starting to squat in wraps, although he's new to the sport, but his sleeves got tight. He didn't want to get another pair of sleeves. He considers his squat weak to his bench, but has brought it up thanks to the wraps. Even though it's really painful, I can finally say my squat is not the same as my bench press. He said he put 40 kilos on his squat in just 6 weeks and still making progress. So here's 180 for 2. Usually struggles with getting air in and getting tight since it feels like the weight is crushing him. So the biggest thing I can recommend you there is get tighter before you unrack. Once the weight of the bar is bearing down on you, you're not going to be able to get that much more air in. So before you unrack, we need to get more air. We need to get tighter. Now let's take a look at the squat itself. Good back position. Really solid squat, buddy. Like exceptional squat. Great back position. Yeah, doing a good job of kind of keeping everything oriented. One of the things we often see with wraps, especially, is because wraps aid in knee extension, right? So wraps are going to be around his knee. And what they're going to do is they're going to want to take his leg from flexed to extend it. So they're going to aid in knee extension. Does that make sense? Now, the issue with that is sometimes that knee extension can happen without significant contribution from the hip extensors in maintaining their position. And what will happen is the knee will extend and the hips will shoot up behind it if we're not strong enough or executing well enough through the back of the hips. We can see the hips kind of shoot up behind. But our boy Carl here does a fantastic job with his upper back, his sort of posterior chain in general, and really manages that position out of the bottom. So extremely well done in regards to your bracing and error questions. Do more of that before you unrack the bar, and I think that'll go a long ways for you. All right, our next one comes from Jerry. Jerry's doing some bench press here. He says he's pretty sure he has the worst bench form possible. All right, well, let's take a look. He says, beside being stuck at the same weight, 15 pounds more for around 3 months, he got injured about a month ago and hasn't been able to bench until today. This is the most weight I could bench without killing my shoulders, and the pain is close to the traps. All right, Jerry, let's take a look and see what we're working with here. So we've got the setup. So we're still very kind of elevated and protracted in the shoulder blades. I'd like to see way more tightness through here, pulling those shoulders down, locking those shoulders together towards one another. You and your friends have quite a big collection of stuff here, which is nice to see. The other thing, I would probably recommend you pull the bar out further, and that's going to help you get those shoulders down. Right? A lot of times when we pull the bar out, we move the shoulder blades down. Right now we're going from here to here. We pull the bar out a bit. We're going from here to here, right? So we've shortened that range of motion pretty considerably. We've also put the shoulders in a bit more of an advantaged position, generally speaking. Now, the other thing is there's no tension on the way down. I would deload this bar a little bit. You said this is the heaviest you could go without your shoulders killing you. Go lighter. Like, you don't always need to be lifting the heaviest that you can, despite what you might see on Instagram. And that's not a shot at you. That's a shot at the state of Instagram. So right now we're just kind of like falling. The bar is just falling on the chest. There's no tension in the bottom. We can see that bar wiggling and wobbling around. And then you press it up and straight back into the rack. Again, like no setup. I'm not sure why you did it like this. There's a lot to learn. And one of those things is just to focus more on what your body is doing. Try to be more aware of sort of the big tenets of a big bench press, and that's going to be leg drive. So contributing, pushing backwards to bring the chest up, shoulders down and back, and just try to like control that bar into the touch. Yeah, the bar path is actually pretty good. You're pressing back and up, but I want you to pull that bar out further as well and just create way more tension. Like if you're comfortable before you bench press, you're probably not tight enough. And if you're like wobbling around on the bench and we're seeing like a lot of movement through the body, like we are, you know, like the legs are moving around, the upper back's moving around, and then you press it right back into the rack and then don't even really get set up. Like your shoulders are way up here. And then you unrack it again, and you can see just just watch all that in the shoulder. Watch right here. Just like wiggling and wobbling. We got to get tight. Basically, we need to learn tightness on the bench press. That's the big thing. But I think you should stick with it. I think you should keep trying. I think you should try to be a little more mindful of your positioning and how your body's moving in the bench press. And I definitely think that you're capable of a lot more. So keep it up and try out some of those tips. All right. Next one comes from Ben. Ben's doing some deadlifts. He says he's 6'2", 265, pushing 40 years old. Good for you, man. He's been deadlifting for about a month and weight training for 3 months, but he used to do cleans back in the day. Recent 1-rep deadlift progression, 363, 413, 428. Video is his top set on Tuesday for 413 for 3 reps and decided to 1R MPR again this week. After that set was 428 and form was similar. He'd like a form check before heading towards the 500-pound mark. All right, let's take a look here. So you got some hook grip going on, it looks like. All told, that looks really solid. I'd like to see a little bit more lockout, but like this position looks pretty good. And I'm pretty sure like we're maybe getting a little bit of hips kicking up, but it kind of just tightens the back, which is decent. We're staying relatively still in terms of like the angle of the hips. Like we're not seeing the hips shoot up without the torso. You know, the torso's kind of coming with it off the floor. We do see the knees shoot back a little bit, so I'd like to maybe try to keep those knees a little more forward. Make sure you're getting something out of your quads as you go through the lift, and I'd also like to see more lockout. So when you get here, pull those shoulders back, squeeze those glutes all the way through, finish the reps. But he's doing a really good job locking the shoulder blades down. I think the grip might be slipping a little bit. I think that might be why the lockouts are looking a tiny bit short. Plenty of strength there. Like that last rep was just like that was a joke. So for the most part, just keep doing what you're doing. I'd like to see a little bit more quads. So try to keep those knees forward. a tiny bit more as you go through the press. See how they start to really push back there. Try to keep those knees forward a little bit. Try to keep that tension through the posterior so we're not kind of seeing those hips shoot at all. And then finish the reps a little bit more. Other than that, looks really good. Ooh, excuse me. And like I said, lots and lots of strength there, which is cool to see. All right, now our last video, we're going to leave this up here for the audience to give their input on. Now this is Sage, and he says he's been watching Form Check Friday videos and loving them. So many people tell others things and straight ass hats about them, so he's happy to see the constructive criticism, which is great. Here's his third set of 3 at 335. He says his squat PR is 410 and hasn't increased in a long time. He's tried different programs, stances, shoes, sleeves, you name it. He says he feels okay with squats until about 395. Curious what we think of the squats. Also, hitting depth is a big issue once he gets higher in weight. Great channel. Hopefully he'll be on one day. Today is your day. All right. So we're going to let everybody give their constructive critiques of Sage here. And I will be back next week to give my critique of Sage. So go ahead and leave your constructive criticism in the comments section below. Again, if you're interested in submitting for Form Check Friday, send those emails to formcheckfriday@gmail.com. If you like this content, stay tuned. We do one of these every Friday. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and tune in for the next one. As well as we're now doing Twitch live streams where we do live form checks, Q&As, all that kind of stuff. We do those almost every Friday, 12 p.m. MST at twitch.tv/Calgary Barbell. So come on by and check us out there. All right, we're going to leave you all with that. We'll see you next week, and thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.